have fled. Yvonne Ndege travelled to Virunga National Park near DR Congo's border with Rwanda. It's one of the gorillas' last remaining refuges, and she filed this report.
Embedded in this vast expanse of forests live Africa's endangered mountain gorillas. There are only 720 left on Earth, but 9 of them have been killed since the beginning of this year. So, tracking their footsteps, we venture deep into the forest to investigate the threats they're facing. I'm in the Virunga National Park in Rwanda, and the gorilla you see behind me is a silverback. He's the man in charge. This is the sort of environment and habitat that gorillas need to survive. The mountain gorillas of Rwanda are relatively safe. The tight and dense vegetation in which they make their home is undisturbed. This ecosystem, which contains more than 200 species of vegetation, is vital to their survival. But just across the border in the DRC, their natural habitat is under threat. It's now the theatre of an intense battle between government troops and these men. Rebels fighting alongside the renegade general Laurent Nkunda. But it's not just the recent fighting that's wreaking havoc on the gorilla population.
You have poachers who set snares and try and trap antelope, hippos, all other kinds of animals. You also have the illegal invasions into the park for cultivation, and then you have people going in to cut down the trees and make charcoal.
The problem is that hundreds of thousands of desperately poor people living in the surrounding villages rely on charcoal for cooking and heating. The issue pits the life of the gorilla against the needs of people living in the area. In the middle of this chaos, Congo's park rangers. They risk their lives on a daily basis by venturing into dangerous areas to protect the gorillas. But rebel forces and government troops have allegedly seized and occupied their most important guerrilla patrol posts. Their weapons, ammunition and communication equipment are routinely looted. It's left the mountain gorillas dangerously exposed. One ranger showed me the remains of a murdered gorilla. One of the legs. Yeah. And protecting gorillas can be fatal. Over 150 rangers have been killed in the last 10 years.
Since I began this job, we didn't see things like this. But till now, I'm still having something to my heart because I'm not feeling well.
The DRC's man-made problems are rapidly encroaching on gorilla territory. Rangers' efforts to protect them are at a complete standstill, but their survival is a very low political priority. Their plight is dwarfed by a human tragedy affecting hundreds of thousands of people in the area, caused by the recent fighting. As a consequence, the mountain gorilla could be heading further down the path of extinction in exchange for human life. Yvonne Ndege, Virunga National Park, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, Paula Kahumbu is from the conservation organisation Wildlife Direct, and she joins me now from Nairobi. Now, I understand things had actually begun to improve. What is it about the killings now that worries you, the killings of gorillas?
Lauren, mountain gorillas over the last 10 years have been increasing as a result of major coordinated efforts of several different organisations as well as the governments of the range states. But the recent killings are shocking and disturbing in that these animals have been killed not for food, not because they present any economic opportunity for the killers, but just to eliminate them. And that is because those forests are currently being looted for the charcoal and the wood that's required by the people living in and around the Virunga National Park.
And so the deforestation is, so that you think it's more that than actual war going on at the moment that's the biggest threat for them?
Lauren, there's a lot of complex issues in this region. At the moment, the war is a major problem. I mean, nobody can do anything in the Virunga National Park. So long as there are rebel militias and government forces in there with guns, it's a threat not only to the rangers who have been there for the last, who knows how many years, 40 years and more. It's also an underlying threat. We could get all those rebels and all those guns out of the forests, But at the end of the day, really, it's the demand for charcoal that is a major long-term underlying threat that has to be resolved.
So what actually happens? Do people go and cut down the forests? Can you explain what happens about the charcoal?
Sure. This is a part of Africa where there's really a lot of lawlessness. The main source of energy for people living not only in the Congo and the major city of Goma, which is growing as a result of the conflict in this region, but all of Rwanda. Rwanda does not have a local domestic charcoal production system. The charcoal for Rwanda actually comes out of the Congo. What happens is local farmers living around the national parks go into the parks, chop down the trees, build massive kilns and produce charcoal. This charcoal is sold on to traders who transport it down to the cities. It gets sold on again and sold on again. And there's this massive domestic informal trade which is worth over $30 million a year.
So effectively the habitat disappears for the gorillas. What needs to happen now? I accept that it's very difficult for people to get in there at the moment, so you may not even know what's happening to the gorillas at the moment, but what in the short term can be done to help them?
There are three things that we think really must be done. Number one, we have to get the guns out of these forests. Nobody can do anything. Nobody can help the gorillas right now. We have to get the guns out of the forest. Secondly, we really have to address the issue of people accessing these forests. We have to put in place the emergency response plan. There's a plan that's been developed by the Congo Wildlife Authorities, the ICCN, together with a group of NGOs that are dedicated and have been working in this region for the last 15 years. That emergency plan cannot be implemented at the moment, but it needs to be implemented. And finally, we have to deal with the charcoal trade itself. We have to look at the underlying major problem, which is a human, social, economic problem. We have to look at alternative sources of energy, alternative sources of charcoal, alternative ways of cooking, and that will actually probably resolve the problem not only for gorillas, for the entire ecosystem. We're talking about the loss of biodiversity. Every time a tree is chopped down, we're losing this unique ecosystem. It's part of the Albertine Rift. We're also talking about climate change. Every time these trees are being chopped down, we're actually pouring more and more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It affects everybody.
Okay. Paula Kahumbo, thank you very much indeed for your time.